What's going on, Nasteey Nation? It's Nasteey, and I would like to welcome each and every one of you to the preseason. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you all by telling you that the preseason is the best time of the year to grind ranked, because quite honestly, it's not. During the preseason is when you will find a lot of players simply not trying that hard, trolling, or giving up easily in their ranked games. However, that doesn't mean that you still can't find good usage of your time playing League, and more specifically, your time playing ranked. Instead, I encourage all of you to spend this time trying new things. You can try new builds, new playstyles, and most importantly, try new champions. In this video, I'm going to be covering the 5 strongest supports for the preseason, as well as some honorable mentions, and these are the champions that I would highly suggest putting some practice into now, so that way when the start of Season 9 does come around, you're very well prepared to make your climb up the solo queue ladder while spamming these power picks. I also think that it is worth noting that my list is not perfect. In fact, no tier list out there will ever be 100% perfect, but I have compiled this list from a combination of personal experience playing solo queue on this patch, win rates and statistics from third-party websites, as well as taking into consideration the opinions from other support main content creators and their tier list. If you go on to disagree with this list, or if you happen to have a question regarding a specific champion on my list, that is absolutely understandable, but just be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, and who knows, maybe we can bounce some ideas off of each other. You can either change my mind, or maybe I can change yours. I'm sure we can make some sense out of all of this. Anyways, that's enough rambling, so without further ado, let's get into the top 5 strongest supports of the preseason. At number 5 on my list, I have Nami, and Nami is a champion that kind of surprised me here. After the most recent patch, which was 8.24, her win rate kind of skyrocketed out of nowhere, and for a while it didn't make too much sense to me, but after looking into it a little bit more, I guess I can kind of figure out what is causing Nami to be up in the higher ranks of the tiers now. The way I look at it, the Dark Harvest meta was really rough on Nami. Nami is a champion that can play aggressive and can also play a little bit more passive and sustain, but when she was up against a lot of these very heavy AP damage dealers, stuff like Brand and Zyra, they were putting out so much damage with Dark Harvest and poking her down so much that even though she can sustain, she wasn't able to sustain quite enough. Eventually she would get whittled down more and more, and eventually she would just lose, but now that Dark Harvest has been nerfed and it's not nearly as oppressive as it once was, Nami is able to not only sustain a little bit better, but also be able to put up a little bit more of a fight against these types of champions, play a little bit more aggressive, and from time to time even look for kills on these champions, because even though she's squishy, they're squishy as well, and if you do land a bubble on Nami, you can take out some of these Dark Harvest abusers. On top of that, Nami does scale really well into the late game as far as being able to provide a lot for her team. She's got a lot of utility, she's got a lot of crowd control, she's an excellent team fighter, and even though Dark Harvest is still a good rune and there's still a lot of Dark Harvest supports out there in the meta that are doing a lot of damage in the later stages of the game, Nami can also put up a fight and kind of go toe-to-toe, matching their hardcore ability power and their hardcore damage with a lot of utility and just a lot of really helpful tools that allow her team to fight back. She's not necessarily a pick or ban champion. Number 5 is nothing to be laughed at, but she's not necessarily OP. Nevertheless, she is a good pick, coming in at number 5 on the list. At number 4 on the list, I have Alistar. Alistar is a really popular pick and a really strong pick, a really powerful pick in competitive play. And don't get me wrong, he is a strong champion and he's in a really good spot at the moment, but I don't think he's top 3 material. He definitely works a lot better in a synchronized team and in the competitive scene, and in solo queue, he's a little bit less strong. Nevertheless, though, he does have a very reliable combo. He's strong in just about every single rank. You can play him anywhere from bronze all the way to challenger, and he will be very powerful. On the other hand, he's slightly predictable. He's got one combo that can be pretty easy to read and both deny if you have the peel potential to deny that. And he does still lose the early game to the Dark Harvest abusers just because he gets poked out, and in comparison to someone like Nami, he doesn't have the sustain to make up for that. He's definitely more of a late game champion, I would say. He makes a lot of plays in the later stages of the game, and he's able to carry games that way. In the lane phase, he can struggle a little bit. Like I said, he does get poked out, but even then, he is a really strong champion when it comes to all inning, especially when it comes to getting level 3. You're able to combo and then have that extra CC if you are able to stack up your E all the way and get that empowered auto attack. But yeah, like I said, definitely a decent champion, a good champion in the early stages of the game in all inning. Struggles a little bit by getting poked out. Later though, definitely a huge power pick, able to carry games, and that's why I figured Alistar would be a perfect choice for number 4 on my list. At number 3 on my list, I have Leona, which is in my eyes basically the upgraded version of Alistar. She is stronger in solo queue and weaker in competitive competitive, which is kind of funny because it's the exact opposite of what Alistar is, but that's just because she is less predictable and overall she has a lot more crowd control. Sure, her crowd control is more times than not single target rather than AoE in comparison to Alistar, but I do think that just having more crowd control overall is more beneficial for solo queue. All this crowd control also makes it a lot easier for her to peel compared to someone like Alistar. Alistar definitely has the advantage, I would say, when it comes to all-inning rather than peeling, but Leona can do both, and she's very, very good at doing both. And because of her strong ability to peel, she doesn't have to necessarily hard engage to have a large impact in games. Alistar, on the other hand, which is just below her, struggles a lot because in order for an Alistar to pop off and have a large impact on the game, he has to be making these big combos, he has to be engaging for his team. Leona, on the other hand, is a little bit more flexible. You can engage or you can peel, and either way you are going to be effective and have a large impact on the game. Some downsides to Leona include the fact that she also gets a little overshadowed by Dark Harvest, but again, very similar to Alistar, she does win all-ins versus these champions like Zyra, like Brand, like Zyra, like Lux, like all these Dark Harvest abusers. She may get poked out because she doesn't have sustain, but she has a clear advantage when it comes to all-inning these champions. Overall, Leona's just in a really good spot, and another clear sign that she's in a good spot is the fact that Riot just released two really awesome skins for them, and I hate to kind of exploit Riot right now, but Riot is a smart company and they don't make skins for champions that are weak because they know people won't be playing them and thus they won't be buying the skins. So the fact that Leona just came out with two new skins kind of goes to show, without anything else needing to be said, that she's in a really good spot at the moment. Alright, now so I know that I have been talking about this a ton already. You guys are probably already well aware of the next two champions on my list and what they're going to include, and that is because I've been talking nonstop about Dark Harvest so far. And at number 2 we have Zyra with Dark Harvest, of course. I really didn't understand the hype around Zyra for a really long time. I know she's been on a lot of tier lists and I know that her win rate is really high, and mainly the reason that I didn't understand why she was so high is because I hadn't personally played her, but I tried her out in a few games and oh my god, this champion is insane. She puts out tons of damage. Just her plants alone, you don't even have to land your abilities most of the time. Your plants will do so much damage. She has a ton of AoE crowd control, and even though she's not the best at necessarily peeling or engaging, she's more of just a damage and able to hit the CC on the front line kind of champion, she's still insanely powerful and insanely good. Now, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, my tier list is not perfect and there's no such thing as a perfect tier list, but I am very positive that Zyra is going to be up there in the meta. Most people made their tier list before the patch was even tested at all, and they made assumptions that Dark Harvest wasn't going to be good, which is why I wanted to wait a little bit to test it out myself. I tested it out, I realized that Dark Harvest is still really good. It's still the go-to rune on Zyra. It still makes her much stronger than she was before Dark Harvest was a thing, before when she was having to run Arcane Comment or potentially Electrocute. Now she is a stronger pick, and that is why I definitely recommend that you try her out, you play her, you spam her, because she is a top pick in the meta right now and definitely one of the strongest picks in the preseason. And finally, the number 1 pick on our list, another insane champion when it comes to putting out a ton of damage, another Dark Harvest abuser, and that is of course Brand. Brand has always been, for as long as I can remember, the highest damage output support in the entire game, and Dark Harvest makes him even that much crazier. Now, this isn't recommended, of course, but this is just an example. When it comes to playing Brand in the later stages of the game, you could practically press R and then die, do nothing else before you die, and still your team will win the game, or rather the fight, just because there is so much damage that you can get off by pressing R. Now, if you're able to position properly and get out a couple rotations of all of your abilities, landing most of them, then you're just going to be able to do so much for your team. You're going to be putting out massive amounts of damage, topping the damage charts for your team, and being able to single-handedly carry games from the support role. He outpokes any other support in the game in the lane phase and also puts out more damage than anybody else in team fights in the later stages. He's easily the best support in the game right now, and I'm almost certain nobody can disagree with that. So I highly recommend. Brand, again, is another champion that you definitely want to be picking up and practicing right now during the preseason. So that does conclude my top 5 list, and now we're going to be moving on into some honorable mentions. At the very top of my list is going to be Thresh. I really wanted to put Thresh in the top 5, but when I make these tier lists are not targeted for high elo players specifically, and unfortunately that's what I feel like Thresh is. Thresh is a champion that shines really well in higher ranks on champions that are able to perform well on him and land a lot of hooks. Overall, Thresh's win rate is about 51%, which is nothing spectacular. It's pretty good to say the least, and it's definitely a lot higher in higher ranks, but I didn't want to include Thresh in the top 5 because I knew a lot of people in lower ranks were going to try him, and that's not what I want. I don't think Thresh is a great champion for lower ranks. In lower ranks, I think people need to focus more on simple champions, focus on their mechanics, and then once they improve, then you can pick up a more difficult champion like Thresh, because Thresh does have a really high skill cap. But again, Thresh is in a really good spot right now, and if you're watching this and you're looking for a really good champion to pick in higher ranks, Thresh is a really good pick, probably a top 3 support for higher ranks. Another honorable mention is Sona, and Sona is another champion that I didn't want to include on this list for the exact same reason, because she is really inconsistent when it comes to different ranks. Sona works really well in lower ranks, ranks, and her win rate is very, very high due to those win rates in lower ranks. But when it comes to higher ranks, she's too predictable, she's too squishy, she's too easy to read and too easy to kill, and that's why I don't think she's overall in the top 5 for me, but definitely a pick I would recommend in the lower ranks in comparison to Thresh, who, like I said, definitely a pick for higher ranks. Another honorable mention is Rakan. Rakan is going to be buffed kind of indirectly from the Dark Harvest nerfs. Dark Harvest was causing him a lot of problems. He was getting chunked too easily, he was taking too much damage, and Rakan as it is already too squishy. He was barely able to engage and live at the same time. With the Dark Harvest nerfs, he's going to be able to engage and get out a little bit easier. However, like I said, he is a little too squishy at the moment, so that's why he's not a top 5 support, but because the playmaking potential is there and the potential to live is also there, that's why I think he's an honorable mention. Another honorable mention is Lux. I would say she's actually the 3rd best Dark Harvest support in the game. A lot of people would consider something like Vel'Koz or Xerath instead, but I do think that Lux is a fairly good support pick at the moment, especially with Dark Harvest. And I've talked enough about Dark Harvest already in this video, so I don't want to mention anything else, but just know Lux support, an honorable mention on my list, and a pretty good pick overall. And finally, the last champion that I'll talk about and the final honorable mention is going to be Taric. There's so much damage going around the support role at the moment, and there's no champion in the game better at neglecting damage than Taric. Between his shields and his heals and his insanely powerful ultimate, he's able to have a large impact in teamfights and neglect a lot of damage, thus making it a lot easier for his team to win teamfights, and that's how he's able to carry games and have a large impact. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude the end of this video. I hope you were able to find this video helpful, and if you were, be sure to leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Also, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, if you have a question about my list or a specific champion in the meta and how they stand, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, and I will try my best to read every single comment and get back to you if I can. Also, be sure to check out my Twitter, give me a follow over on Twitch, and check out my Discord. Links to all of them will be down in the description. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.